The tale of the Bunny Man goes back many, many years. Originally, it didn't start until 1931, after many murders had already been committed. For verification of the story, you can visit the old Clifton Library, located in Clifton, Northern Virginia, USA. What I'm about to tell you is entirely true. Although I've never seen the Bunny Man, everyone in Clifton believes it to be true. A quick reference to help you understand the story. The bridge is a one-lane car road passing underneath a dual railroad track above it within the woods along a gravel road. Back in 1903, there used to be an asylum buried deep within the wilderness of Clifton. Pretty soon after the Civil War, people started to inhabit the area, population-wise around 300 or so. It was a very small town. Nonetheless, people didn't like the idea of having an asylum miles down the road, so they all got together and signed a petition stating that the asylum to relocate somewhere else. The petition passed, and a new asylum was built, which is now known as Lorton Prison, a temporary facility until convicts are appropriately sentenced. In fall of 1904, the convicts were gathered and piled into a bus which was to transport them to Lorton. Somehow, during the drive not too far from where they left, the bus had to swerve to avoid something. The bus started to tip over and soon was rolling in a terrible collision course. Most of the convicts were injured, but had managed to escape the bus and had fled into the night woods. Later on the next morning, a local police investigation had begun, and they had begun rounding up the escaped convicts. Hours turned into days, days into weeks, weeks into months. Everyone was recovered after 4 months except for 2 people. Marcus A. Walster and Douglas J. Griffin. During the search for both men, the police randomly found dead rabbits, half-eaten, dismembered, every now and then along the search. Finally, they were to find Marcus dead, himself, by the Fairfax Station Bridge, now known as Bunny Man's Bridge. In his hand he held a man-made hammer knife-like tool, made with a sharp rock and a pretty sturdy branch as a handle. They thought nothing, and cared not of how he died, only that he was apprehended and no longer had to worry about him. They had a name for Marcus, but later on they would realize that they had named the wrong person the Bunny Man. Still searching for Douglas, they kept on finding dead, half-eaten rabbits every so often while the search went on. Finally, they were to name Douglas the Bunny Man from then on. 3 months had passed by, and the police had given up their search on April 7th of 1905. Everybody assumed that the Bunny Man was dead by now, if not gone, so they went on with their small-town lives. Come October, people started to see dead bunnies reappearing out of the blue, and started to fear the unseen. Halloween night came around, and, as usual, a bunch of kids had gone over to the bridge that night to take a drink and do whatever kids their age in the 1900s did. Midnight came. Within minutes, most of the kids had left. Only 3 remained at the bridge. Right at midnight, supposedly a bright light back from within the bridge, where the kids were, and less than a couple seconds later, they were all dead, throats slashed with some sort of tool that was found by the other escapees, Marcus. Not only were their throats slashed, but all up and down their chests there were long slashes gutting them. To top it off, the Bunny Man hung both of the guys from one edge of the bridge, with a rope around their necks, hanging from the overpass with their legs dangling in front of passing cars. The women were hung the same way on the other side of the bridge. This happened on Halloween in 1905, and after that, they didn't see or hear anything again from him for another year. Halloween 1906 was approaching, and parents as well as teens in Clifton still remember the incident that occurred 1 year ago at the bridge, his bridge. Bunnyman's Bridge. That night, 17s were left remaining right before midnight at the bridge. Thinking little of it, 6 remained inside the bridge, while one, Adrienne Hatala, had remained a good distance away from the bridge, hoping to have enough time to escape if the same thing happened again. At midnight she witnessed only this: a dim light, walking the railroad track, right before midnight, stopping right above the bridge at midnight, then disappearing at the same time as the bright flash from within the bridge. She heard the deafening sounds of horrific screams coming from inside the bridge that lasted only seconds. And 5 seconds later, they were all hung from the edge of the bridge, same as the corpses a year earlier. She didn't tell of everything she saw, just splattered words here and there that some of the folk put together to come up with her story. No one understood it, or even believed her. They charged her for the murder and locked her up in the asylum of Lorton. In 1913, the same thing happened with 9 teenagers this time. Halloween night again. Adrienne was still locked up. They dropped her sentence, but it was too late. The insanity had finally conquered her. Even if she was released, she was too far gone to have a decent life. So she spent her remaining year in the asylum until she finally died in 1953. Of shock. No one knows what exactly she was shocked from, but supposedly she died in her dreams, dreaming of that one dreadful night. Perhaps the Bunnyman had finally gotten to her. More murders had taken place, however. Although after the murders in 1913, most people stayed clear of the bridge on Halloween. 1943 rolls around, and 6 teenagers go strolling out on Halloween night. A couple hours later, all of them dead. Same way as all the others. Investigations took place, but, as usual, nothing was discovered. 1976, the same situation occurs, this time with only 3 people. The only other incident that occurred since then was in 1987. Janet Charlatier was enjoying the night with her 4 friends. Halloween night had finally come, and they'd gone driving out to enjoy the night after invading the children's candy bags. They'd settled around 11 at the bridge, waiting for midnight to come. They didn't believe in the myth, so they decided to see it for themselves, and were bound to be the only ones who actually withstood the Bunnyman. They'd waited about 55 minutes or so, almost at midnight, until Janet started to get a little scared. They all had been pulling pranks on each other, jumping out of the bushes and screaming, so she was already a little worked up. And then midnight hits. While she's completely freaked out, she's almost out of the bridge when the lights get really bright inside. When that happens, her body is halfway out of the bridge. She sees her skin starting to tear at the chest, but nothing's piercing her. She managed finally to exit the bridge, completely horrified. She hits a hanging body, knocking herself out. When she awakes, she finds out her hair has turned white, and she's been bleeding. She was lucky that the cut had just started. It wasn't very bad at all. She left and never returned to that bridge. She's been seen sitting on a swinging bench on her balcony every morning, just staring in the direction towards the bridge a couple of miles down. To this day, you can still find her on that bench every morning. From then on, the story dwells untouched, unmoved. Halloween night, you'll find a bunch of people hanging around the bridge, drinking, smoking up, but within minutes of midnight, everyone leaves. It's been like that for the past 5 years that I've visited the bridge on Halloween night. Even if it's not Halloween night, any night that you go there, you feel the presence of death awaiting the night sky of Halloween, yearning for more blood to be spilled in his name, the Bunnyman.